So this is chapter 41 of Ecclesiasticus from the Apocrypha, which was included in the 1611 King James Bible. And here's what it says. How bitter the thought of you, O death, to anyone at ease among his possessions, free from cares, prosperous in all things, and still vigorous enough to enjoy a good meal. How welcome your sentence, O death, to a destitute person whose strength is failing, who was worn down by age and endless anxiety, resentful, and at the end of his patience. Do not fear death's sentence. Remember those before you and those coming after. This is the Lord's decree for all mortals. Why try to argue with the will of the Most High? Pause. That matches exactly with every man lives once and then the judgment. This is a life that is to be for us to be tested and us to choose between God and Satan. And if you choose God, to live for God fully. If you want to go, worship Satan, that's your choice, but he already lost, so it's a pointless endeavor. None of the things that Satan offers, which add up to oblivion, because he is the darkness that you get when you separate yourself from the ways of God. So in the Gospel of Nicodemus, you see Satan and death, which it's talking about right here, are both conquered by Jesus, and they all didn't know that Jesus was the Son of God when he was on the earth. They didn't realize that he was the actual one that created them. They didn't know that, because if they did, they wouldn't have done it. But in the ascension of Isaiah, Jesus disguises himself through the 7 layers of heaven, and then in the Gospel of Nicodemus, when Jesus goes back up and ascends into the heavens, he has to go back up through the layers, and as you go up, you have to give the password. When he came down, he was guarded by Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel, and in some versions their names are different, but those are the 4 angels that accompanied Jesus as he went down. When he got to the final layers before coming here, that's where the demons are, and they were all arguing, and they didn't even notice that he was there. But in this book, the Ascension of Isaiah, you find out that the way that Isaiah was murdered, and it's factual that he was murdered that way. So why don't we read that book as well? And Jesus himself said to the Jews, you're getting mad at me because I say I'm the Son of God, but it says in your own scriptures that ye are gods, but you will die like one of the princes. So there is a time where we are sent here to be tested, and I've said this many times, and I truly believe this, is that when Jesus says, because you are lukewarm, I will spew you out of my mouth, I believe that is what he did to the human beings that are currently on this planet, why we are birthed into this planet, because there was a way for our souls to go, but Satan blocked that by what happened with Adam and Eve in the garden, where Satan had, they ate the fruit or whatever, fell down here, and then Satan seduced Eve and impregnated her with Cain. That's what Satanists believe, and that's why Jesus says, be wise as serpents, but innocent as doves or whatever, because he's saying, be smart as the serpents, because if you're not, they're going to take advantage of you, and they currently are. And they just tricked half the world into doing something that they shouldn't have. And so I might as well talk about this right now. We're into it. Why not talk about it now? Is that before I ever heard of a Catholic prophecy about a 3 days of darkness, I didn't never hear this before. I had a dream probably 2 years ago about a time where there will be darkness, and we will all have to hide in our homes, and God will protect us during this time, but you need to get home and protect yourself and cover your windows, and it's like it will be in the days of Egypt, where he slaughters all the firstborn of Egypt. It's going to be something of that proportion, and the reason for this is because our enemies have stacked up against us so strong, and we were so asleep that we didn't realize that they were coming for us. And at the same time, we were so caught up in our own sins that we didn't see what was coming. And so I think that Christ is going to allow a certain amount of time of reprieve for us to preach the gospel and to teach people about his word, because he didn't just save all of these virgin documents, all these other books that create the Holy Spirit's testament. He didn't do that. He didn't save the best wine for last just to have it, destroyed by the elites, the World Economic Forum and the Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds, the people in charge of the Rockefellers, the people in charge of the world, the 13 elite families. He didn't do all of this. He says he laughs at their plans. So if Jesus, the Word of God, is laughing at their plans, and you follow Jesus, and Jesus says in the Nag Hammadi Codices, which they also don't accept, most Christians don't accept, he says in the Nag Hammadi Codices, that if you come to understand what the all is, and the all is, if you understand what happened in the garden with Satan and Eve creating Cain, and that is the wheat and the tares parable, because in the wheat and the tares parable, he says the enemy that spread his seed is the devil. So the devil has children on this earth, and in Jude, who's the half-brother of Jesus, who sat at his dinner table, had meals with them, and they all waited till Jesus came back to eat. They never ate unless Jesus came back. So you can imagine he would have amazing things to tell them when he got back all the time and teach them. It says in Jude, which is only like 25 verses, that's right before Revelation. It says that Enoch, seventh from Adam, prophesied. Not Cain's firstborn, the wicked son Cain, the one that did witchcraft, and they still have witchcraft books with his name on it to this day. Not that one. Enoch, seventh from Adam, who is one of the two witnesses who self-identifies in the Gospel of Nicodemus, which is right in this. They tell you who they are. We will come back to fight the Antichrist and all that. And in Enoch it says that his books are for a remote generation that will be living in the end times, when all the wicked and the ungodly will be removed. So how will the wicked and the ungodly be removed? And it does say that happens in the very end, but I believe there is a portion in between that where God separates them. And it's based on what I see around me, multiple testimonies that I have copies of, all of their other people's testimonies of this, saying this. And regardless of whether or not there was somebody that was part of a Catholic church that had that same prophecy back in the day, because he dreamed it too, that doesn't, just because somebody was Catholic and dreamed it, doesn't mean that it's not possible for it to be true. And also it's not possible, it's possible for other people to dream it right before it happens, if somebody dreamed it in the past as well. So that dream coincided with another dream where I was on Noah's Ark and God was protecting us, and we were all in little circles, sitting down in little circles as families on the ark, and there was like a nurse's station with a like big oval, and nurses, which were angels, coming out of like doors to like check on us and everything as we were going through this time. And I had a video on YouTube about the 3 Days of Darkness with 50,000 views. It was so popular that even my ex found it and tried using it against me in court and stuff like that, saying I was crazy. And I eventually took it down because too many people were commenting, saying I was Catholic and all this other stuff, which I'm not, because, and I don't mean anything against Catholics, it's just the fact that I don't worship idols. I don't believe that you should have idols in your church, and that Vatican, in my opinion, is the false prophet church, like the whore that rides the beast type thing, you know what I mean? So like, I would never be a part of that. I don't mean that I don't love the people that are Catholics. I want them to turn away from that, but they won't, in my opinion, because, you know, unless you've already done it. But we're in the end stages of the end times. Like, this is like, certain people have already condemned themselves to death, the first and the second death, without really thinking about it, just because they didn't want to look like fools to their fellow man. But now it's getting pretty evident that the people that tried to save their lives will lose their lives, and those that gave up their lives will be fine. But I read this part of Ecclesiasticus in the beginning to show you that it links into all the other books of the Bible in only a short span. I dipped right into the middle of the book of Ecclesiasticus, and just picked a random chapter within the first few verses, it all links up. And I'll just real quick read some more of this. It says, "What a loathsome brood are the children of sinners, brought up in the haunts of the godless. Their inheritance disappears, and their descendants live in lasting disgrace. A godless father is taunted by his children for the disgrace they endure on his account. Woe to you who are impious, who have abandoned the law of God Most High. When you are born to a curse, and when you die, a curse is your lot. All that is of the earth returns to earth, so too the godless go from curse to destruction. There is grief over the death of a body, but sinners have no good name to survive them. Take thought for your name, it will outlive you, longer than thousands of great hoards of gold. The days of a good life are numbered, but a good name lasts for all time. Be true to your upbringing, my children, and live in peace. Hidden wisdom and buried treasure, what is the use of either? Better someone who hides his folly than one who hides his wisdom. Show deference then to my teaching. Shame is not appropriate on all occasions, nor all things held in high repute by everyone. Be ashamed to be detected in fornication by your parents, or in lies by a ruler or a prince, in crime by a judge or a magistrate, or in a breach of God's law by the assembly and people, in dishonesty by a partner or a friend, or in theft by the neighborhood. Be ashamed of breach of oath or contract. Be ashamed of leaning your elbow on the table, or giving or receiving with ill grace, or refusing to return a greeting, or of ogling a prostitute. Be ashamed of turning away a relative, or of robbing someone of his rightful share, or of eyeing another man's wife. Be ashamed of meddling with his slave girl, or of visiting her bed. And that means servant girl, not slave. Be ashamed of taunting your friends, or following up your charity with the lecture. Be ashamed of repeating what you have heard, or of betraying a confidence. Then you will show a proper sense of shame and be popular with everyone." That was chapter 41 of Ecclesiasticus, and it outlaid in simple terms the 10 Commandments, basically. So, yeah, why aren't we reading this? Why aren't we teaching this? And why did we forget our first love, which is the Word of God? That's like straight up. Just tell me why. Why are we not teaching this? Why are we as God's people so worried about all the crap happening on CNN and television and Fox News and whatever's happening in the government, who's ever invading who's landing where, who's moving what tanks, and like our God works around all that stuff. He's the one that is in control of both good and evil. Who allowed Job to be tested? God did. Who had to get permission from God? Satan did. Who's the ruler of the world? God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And it sits like this: God at the top, Jesus at his right hand, right hand. It's probably backwards to you on video. And the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the feminine aspect of God, is right here on the left-hand side. And it forms a triangle which fits into a dome at the top of the 7 layers of heaven, which is a dome. It's like, and not a lot of people say that's what New Jerusalem is like a pyramid. Some people say it's a cube, but I think it's a pyramid, because a pyramid is what they copied, like the fallen angels copied in Giza and all these other places, because they don't know how to do nothing else. They're just like not us, not created in the image of God, not smart like us, not like creative like us, not caring like us. You know, they don't have that like sense of compassion for like when something's hurt like we do, like the way that God made us to be, the music that we create, the art we create, the things that we do on a daily basis that form the world around us. The demons are jealous of us. The Satan hates us, and it's because God made us in his image. That's like literally the point of all of this. Satan was jealous, so he took Adam's wife. He said he was going to do it. Satan said in the garden, he said, because the way I see it, it's like levels, like how they fell. So Adam and Eve are Adam and Eve are up in paradise. and they, Eve listens to the devil and eats the tree or whatever. And then because they do that, they get punished, they lose their nature or whatever, and then they fall to like the earth, and then Satan impregnates Eve with Cain. And while she's praying in the Jordan River, which is why Jesus gets baptized in the Jordan River to reverse it. And I just learned this earlier today on TikTok, is that like in the Hebrew, and it says this in like plain terms also in like a book I just read yesterday. Jesus says he like became a wall. There's like a wall that stopped us from getting into the kingdom. So he made a door for us to get in, and that's why he calls himself the door. And that in the Hebrew letters, that's what it forms or whatever. So it's like a door. He's the door, and then there's like a house, and that house, we had no way to get into it, but now we do because he made a way in for us. It's like that bridge thing where the cross is the bridge for us to get back into the kingdom. And whether or not you believe that we are the people that didn't fight in the heavenly war, you don't have to believe that. But why do we have a guardian angel that stays with us from birth, that protects us against the demons that are trying to tempt us to go against God? It's like we are literally continuing on the battle that was in heaven that we didn't fight, and God knew we wouldn't be strong enough, so he sent Jesus to die for all the mistakes that we would make here on earth, tested by lust and envy and strife, anger, jealousy. And Jesus said, I'm finishing sentences of things I didn't continue on in this video. So because Jesus knew that we wouldn't be able to do it on our own, he like made a way for us from the beginning. That's what it talks about, like in Revelation, when like he sees like no one can open the book, and then the Lamb opens the book, Jesus opens the book. That's all like symbolic of everything that God has done, because when you realize that Jesus made himself, his body, a living metaphor of what would happen to this. If I go like this and I rip up the Apocrypha, that's like when Jesus got the stripes on his back when he got whipped. But that's what they did. They took out these pages of these books, and that wasn't their right to do that. We're smart. We understand things, like we understand like basic human nature and emotions. And how would you like it if you wrote a book and I started ripping pages out of your book? You don't see people going to Barnes and Noble and ripping pages out of books because they don't like what it says, unless they're like, Greenpeace or something. Like we have taken it upon ourselves to be God of God. We aren't God. We are the creation of God, and we must show respect to God. And people are like so arrogant that we think, where it says right there, like we are born into this world, we have no choice, and then you die with no choice, and you don't know when you're going to die. So why would you risk that? Like, I don't understand, like, people that do free climbing without ropes and they're atheists. What? It's not wise. Men that are fishermen are scared of the ocean. When they see a storm coming, they come in. It's a basic thing. It's smart. But you want to risk eternity because you don't like religion. I don't like religion either, and apparently it didn't work out. Religion didn't work out too well for Jesus, his disciples, or for John, who was sent to Patmos, because he didn't probably want to do what all the religious people in the area wanted him to do. He even got kicked out of his own church, his own congregation. He got kicked out by Diotrephes, and that's probably why he was on Patmos. So that stuff's happening at the beginning, and they kill everybody, and then throughout the ages, they don't accept Jesus had 12 disciples. Where's all their books? And then people say, people think about it, like, oh yeah, where are all the books? Well, maybe Paul's a false disciple because all his books are in. No. Paul, preaching to the Gentile nations, the 12, preaching to Israel, and like also the rest of the world too, because Thomas went to India Philip went to like Syria or something like that, and they all went to different places of the world to preach the gospel and do what they were supposed to do, and they did it. And where are those books? That's what I'm saying. Like, what is Christian faith based upon? Religious beliefs that all are different, denominational beliefs. That's not the truth of the gospel. That's not worshiping in spirit and in truth. Peter was called Satan by Jesus for trying to build 3 temples so that the Jews, the Christians, and the elect could worship in different houses. And Jesus said, worship in spirit and truth. Don't do that. And yet right now they're building a temple for the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews. And the Muslims don't even believe in Yahweh. They believe in Allah, which is Satan. And the Jews don't accept Jesus the Messiah, so they don't accept this whole New Testament, which is your salvation, which is people don't like think about this, and they continue going to church and like the same songs, the same thing, and then they go to Bickford's. It's like not the holiness that God wanted us to have. It's not the perfection that God envisioned when he wanted us to like do his work for him. We try so hard and we put these like big words on resumes to get jobs for the man, for the pyramid. When we think about doing work for God, it's like we just you give him your like 2%, you're like 1. No, we need to be giving Jesus Christ and his kingdom and everything that comes along with that, including persecution. We need to be giving that our 100%. And every other thing in the world is second to that, if not 10th and 11th and 12th down the line from that. Who cares about physical possessions, happiness in this world, position in this world, money, Bitcoin, anything in this world doesn't matter. Jesus said in Nag Hammadi Codices, in order for us to overcome the fallen angels, we need to understand the all, which is the beginning to the end, the Alpha and the Omega. And to understand that, you need to understand what happened in the garden, what the wheat and the tares parable is, which is Cain versus Seth's line, which is where Jesus came from, Seth's line, not Cain's. And you need to understand that we fight against principalities and powers and the rulers of wickedness in high places. And lastly, I wanted to talk about this, and I'm trying to get as much out before I have to go to work, so bear with me. I told everyone that I would give a warning if I found out that there was something that can tell you when the 3 days of darkness would come. And maybe you've seen this somewhere else, maybe you haven't, but this is my warning to you if you have made it this far into this video. If you see in the middle of like the daytime, the aurora borealis or something like that coming, like the northern lights, like the green and the purple in the sky, that is your warning to stop what you're doing, warn as many people as you can on the phone, and go home. Shut your doors like in Israel when the angel of death was coming. Prepare your house, have food and water for 3 days, and stay in the house. It's not hard to do. You probably did that this past weekend because nobody has any money, you know. But stay safe. I don't give a crap if people think I'm nuts. I don't care. At this point, it really doesn't matter at all. So, if you have time or would like to read these books that I am telling you you should be reading because it will benefit your soul if you love Christ, send me an email and I will send most of the books you could like possibly find out there, besides a few that are at sacredwordpublishing.com and a couple online for free. Most of it's on this. Email me, jaredsallan@gmail.com, jaredsallan@gmail.com, and I will send you copies of all these books for free. God bless and have a great day.